In this video, instead of focusing on a specific tool or activity, what I'd like to do is to step back and take a high-level overview of what the measure phase looks like in any type of DMAIC style project. The specific learning objectives for this video include identifying some of the objectives and activities that team members should be focused on when they're working in the measure phase of a DMAIC style project. We'll introduce some of the specific tools and concepts that we'll be drilling down on in future videos. I'd like to also review some of the common traps that occur in the measure phase of DMAIC style projects and provide some tips on how to avoid those traps. And then finally, just kind of review in general how data-driven problem solving, regardless of the methodology, follows some of these specific goals and activities. All right, I've now cleaned up my screen a little bit and I'm pulling information that's from the Business Process Improvement Workbook. And at the beginning of the measure phase for a DMAIC style project, I often bring my team together just to celebrate some of the work that had been completed in the define phase. We've completed a toll gate review and there's a lot of qualitative data that has been collected. And review with the team some of the common activities and tools that we'll be using in the measure phase, sort of creating the roadmap for what the future looks like. And one of the problems that I see frequently happen with my teams is that when we take a look at the pretty short list of things that you need to do in the measure phase, which includes there's really just three things that we're trying to do in the measure phase, and that is to get a visual representation of the process or map it, to identify the variables that we want to go out and measure. These are our CTQs and what our overall process performance is, and then go out and collect the data. The team frequently looks at that small list and says, well, we've already started to build a map, and we've already identified and created some CTQ statements. These were activities that we performed in the measure phase. It looks like all we have to do is just go out and collect our data. And it becomes end of measure phase is a mad dash to go out and collect data. And that's not what we're really trying to do. Let me clean up the screen a little bit and show you what we're really trying to do. Well, it is true that these are some of the common activities that are performed in the measure phase. Define and measure together are supposed to help us better understand what's going on in current state. These two phases together help us better understand the frustration in current state and some of the variables that are contributing to that poor current state performance. The two phases together should give us both qualitative and quantitative data, and we use that information to get to root causes. Define and measure together help prepare the team for effective root cause analysis in the analyze phase. And the whole reason why we're doing root cause analysis is so that we can eventually identify solutions in the improve phase that we can go out and implement to make a better future state. The goal of the measure phase is not to collect data. The goal of the measure phase is to better understand current state. We'll use the tools that best help us get to an understanding of current state. And they will almost always include refinement of our process map, refinement of the variables that we might want to measure, and some sort of collection of quant data to help us either support or refute the qualitative data that we've been capturing in the define phase. But it is not the goal of a DMAIC-based project for the team to be a bunch of data collectors and analyzers. You won't have enough time and resources to just be on an endless quest to collect and analyze data. So with that said, let's take a look at some of the preparatory things that I relay to teams that will be performing in the measure phase, and then dive into some of the specific tools that we frequently see. So I've now pulled up the make summary sheet that's part of the business process improvement workbook. And this is the document that I will typically bring at the beginning of a measure phase meeting with my team. I first remind the team that we're collecting both qualitative and quantitative data on current state performance. That's going to help us get to the analyze and improve phases, which will eventually get us to moving the needle of performance. The real goal is to take a poor performing process where performance is low in current state and get it to a future state performance where the needle of performance is moved to a higher value. There are, though, some key tools that are going to help us in the measure phase. We're going to take a look at crafting out a detailed process map. We'll be refining the high-level process maps that we built in the define phase. We'll take some of our feedback that we've gotten from voice of customer interviews and process walks to help create that much more accurate view of the current state condition. These detailed process maps won't just contain the common path or the happy path, they'll contain all of the alternative paths in the system. We'll also, though, be refining our list of variables that we might want to measure. In the define phase, we create a big list of critical to quality variables, are the variables that are pushing against the needle of performance. They're not the measurement of our low performance, but they are the variables that contribute to low or high performance. And we want to know what they are. In the defined phase, we create a big list of possible CTQs, but in the measure phase, that's when we're going to go out and make decisions on which ones to actually spend our time and resources on measuring. So we'll prioritize that list and then prepare the team in advance before we go out and collect that data. It's also in the measure phase that we're determining what is the numeric or quant data that we need to collect to support or refute all of our findings in the define phase. Frequently, the define phase contains a lot of anecdotal stories or one-on-one interviews, and that's a sample size of one. They may be describing a reflection of what's going on in current state, but sometimes we want to get a data set to support those findings, or in some cases, we want to get a data set to refute those findings. In the end, if we've done a good job, if we have, at the end of the measure phase, prepared our team for root cause analysis by getting a combination of qualitative and quantitative data, increase the knowledge level of our team, and identified the focus areas that we want to spend on root cause analysis. We can't fix everything in the process, but by the end of the measure phase, we should know what are the few areas that are most important for us to begin exploring for root cause and making a better future state from. So to do that, there are some tools that are going to really help us with this activity. And I'm going to clear up my screen here to be able to list off these key tools. I've already mentioned one of the key tools. In a series of follow-up videos, we're going to spend a lot of time taking a look at different ways to create a detailed process map. Creating a visual understanding that the entire team contributed toward is really going to help when we eventually get to root cause analysis. Another thing that we're going to do before we go out and collect the data is we're going to create a data collection and measurement plan. Before we go out and collect the data, let's create a plan so that the data that we collect is as accurate a reflection of current state as possible, so that we aren't ending up getting bad data. Because if we end up with bad data, that may lead the team to bad root cause analysis in the analyze phase. And there are some tools that help with that data collection and measurement plan, and we'll drill down in future videos on those specific tools to help us answer questions like where should we go to get the data, how much data is enough, and how do we make sure that everybody is measuring the phenomena in a consistent manner. After we collect that data, we're going to need to review it. And when I say review, I'm really talking about data analysis tools. And there is a wealth of data analysis tools available for teams to use. Our job is not to be the data analyzers of the organization. Our job is to quickly sift through the data that has been collected to help us determine, do we have enough to go on to the analyze phase? Or do we need to go back and pull some more data? Because sometimes with new data, we have new questions. Um, New questions and requires new data collection. New data collection requires new analysis, and sometimes that analysis leads to more questions. And what you want to prevent from happening is your team being stuck in an analysis paralysis loop. Um, we'll take a look at some tools to help with that data review, but the emphasis will be on how do we do it in a quick and efficient manner so that we can get teams to where we really want them to go to, which is to the analyze phase for root cause analysis. If we make sure that the team understands that our job in define and measure is to collect qualitative and quantitative data, and that data should increase our knowledge level to support the root cause analysis that occurs in the analyze phase, we've prepared our team and we can then start to assign tasks and activity for the group and as quickly as possible get through the measure phase to get to the important part, developing root causes and building future state solutions.